We continue our example of the addition rule with example 2, which is using the general addition rule. So now we've taken the Titanic passengers and we've categorized them by a second variable. The first variable was class, and the second variable here is whether they were alive or if they died on the Titanic. So the grand total down here, 2,224 people, you can get that two different ways. You can compute, just add up the different people in the classes to get 2,224. Or if you count the people who lived and the people who died, you also get 2,224. Let's get to the addition rule by doing a couple of steps ahead of time. Let's compute the probability that a passenger was in the first class. So the probability that someone was in the first class, we look at the first class row, go all the way over to the end and find the table of the total, and we get 325. Another way to look at this is that if you add up the people who were found alive and then add up the people who died in first class, you'll get the grand total. So that 325 divided by 2,224, we get 0.1461. So the second part, we're going to find the probability that a passenger was found alive. So the alive is the column, and we're going to ignore what class they were in because all we care about is that they were alive. So they go to the total and we have 710. So the probability that someone is found alive, we have 710 out of the 2,224 people. That's a 4. We have 0.3192. So about a 32% chance that someone would have been found alive. You could also interpret it as 32% of people were found alive. All right, so one more step before we can actually use our addition rule. Compute the probability a passenger is in the first class and is found alive. So this word "and," we're looking at two qualities being met. The person needs to be alive and also in the first class. So going back up to our table, we're going to look for the overlap. So the alive and first class. You can look at this as you move down the column and you move over on the row, and where they overlap, that is going to be our answer. So the overlap of the alive and first class is 202 people. So now I'll go back. The probability that someone is in the first class and alive, there were 202 people out of the 2,224 people. So do the division for this problem. Let's do that. 202 divided by 2224. We get 0.0908. 0.0908. All right, so down to the question that we really wanted to answer. This is our addition rule. We see that word "and." We saw that before. Let's highlight this. We want to find the probability that the person is in the first class or is found alive. There's two ways to do this problem. There's your gut intuition, and then there's using a formula. I'm going to use both ways. First, I'm going to use my intuition, though. So first class or found alive, that means that any one of those qualities can be met. They could be first class, they could have been found alive, or maybe you found a person who was in the first class and also was found alive. So I'm going to go back up to the table and look at a little bit more. If the person is found alive, they could have fallen in any of these sections. So the 202 anywhere down to the 212. So that's the people who are found alive. If you're in the first class, you are in that first row. So, oh, looks like my green disappeared here. Well, we might be stuck without that. Come on. Let's see if we can get this. So that's 123 hiding under there. Oh, actually, let's do this. All right. Finally have the people who are in first class, the people who are alive, all accounted for. And if I want to find the probability that someone is alive or in the first class, I can just add up all those numbers. So the probability that someone is in first class or alive, I'm just going to add up all of those numbers that I boxed up. I'll start with 123 plus 202 plus, now I'll keep going down the column, 118 plus 178 plus 212. So those are my people. Now to find the probability, I'll divide by the grand total, 2, 2, 2, 4. Add that all up. We'll find 833 people out of the 2,224 people are first class or they're found alive, and then do the division, find the probability. That's 0.3746. That's a 446. Okay, so this is our intuition. We just kind of looked at the numbers, added them all up, divided by the grand total, we found our probability. Well, here's where the addition rule, this general addition rule, comes in. It is used for any event, especially when you have two categories. The general addition rule looks like the probability of A or B, so the class that the person was in or whether they lived or died. To compute this maybe more quickly or using the addition rule, we'd say take the probability of A, add the probability of B, and then there's something more that we didn't see in the last example. We're going to subtract the probability of A and B. So I want to point out that we're subtracting an overlap. Some people were categorized, well, everyone was categorized twice, so that means they got double counted. If I went back up to the top and wanted to find my probability, I can't just take 710 plus 325. That's because there's some double counting. See how the green and the pink, they overlap there with those 202 people that were counted as alive as well as in first class. If I tried to just add up 710 and 325 to find my OR probability, these 202 people were counted twice. So we remove the excess, and that is the AND probability down in our general addition rule. So we're removing the duplicates. I can now go back to this problem, which was the key here. Find the probability that the passenger is in the first class or found alive. I can take the probability of first or alive. I'm going to abbreviate F's and A's. And I'm going to add up the probability that someone is found in the first class. plus the probability that they were found alive, and then subtract out the probability of F and A. I'm going to do a little bit of maneuvering down here. So the probability of F or A. So the probability that someone was in the first class, I'm going to go back up to the top there, that was 1461. And then add the probability that someone was found alive. So that was 3192. And then subtract the chances that they were in the first class and found alive. That was 0908. So let's go to the calculator, add this up. 1461 plus 0.3192 subtract 0.0908. And we got 0.3745. So compare our answers. When we used our intuition, we got 3746. When we use the general addition rule, we got 3745. There's a little bit of rounding error out there at that fourth decimal place, but virtually the answers are the same. So this example is there to show you that with a table like this, we can use our intuition. That was the first way I solved the problem, and just add up all the counts of the people who met the qualities. Or I can use the addition rule where I add the single probabilities and then subtract out the overlap.